sit down in like a premium movie theater, right?
Yeah.
You're there to watch this beautifully shot, highly anticipated film.
Oh, yeah. The popcorn is ready. The lights go down.
Exactly. Cinematography is sweeping. The acting looks visibly intense. The lighting is just perfect. But the moment the characters actually start speaking, you realize there's this one massive, just catastrophic problem.
Uh-oh. Let me guess.
The audio track is out of sync with the visuals by exactly 2 seconds.
Oh, that is the worst. That completely shatters the immersion, you know? Your brain just cannot ignore that kind of sensory mismatch.
It ruins the entire experience.
Yeah.
I mean, the lead actor's lips move, you lean in, you're expecting the emotional impact of the line, but you hear nothing but silence.
Right, just dead air.
Yeah. And then 2 agonizing seconds later, the dialogue finally hits your ears. You can't just sink in and enjoy the story because your brain is suddenly working overtime, right? You're desperately trying to patch the visual data and the audio data together. The lag is just exhausting.
It really is. I mean, we're fundamentally wired to expect immediate processing. When input and comprehension don't align perfectly, your cognitive load just spikes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Our brains are essentially these prediction engines, and when the timing is off, the engine stalls.
And, you know, that stalled engine is the exact reality for millions of people learning a second language. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are taking aim at that very specific, very agonizing cognitive bottleneck.
We really are. It's such a universal pain point.
It is. We are talking directly to you, the listener. You've been putting in the grueling work, right? You're drilling vocabulary flashcards, you're deciphering complex grammar rules, investing the hours required to learn English.
Doing all the right things on paper.
Exactly. But when you step into a real live conversation, you are still trapped in that out-of-sync movie. Someone asks you a relatively simple question, and your brain just completely freezes while you frantically search the archives for the right word.
And the frustration there is just immense. I mean, you possess the knowledge. If you were taking a written exam, you would easily pass.
Right, you'd get an A.
Yeah, but in the unpredictable environment of real-time communication, there is this massive roadblock between your thoughts and your mouth.
So our mission today is to completely dismantle that roadblock.
Yeah.
We've curated this really deep stack of linguistic research and expert language acquisition strategies.
We've got some great sources today.
We really do. We're looking at insights from Migaku, 51 Talks, Story Learning by Ollie Richards, research out of Tohoku University, Practice Me, Bowtie Oden, and frameworks from Teacher Tefani.
It's a goldmine of practical neurological exercises.
Exactly. And the goal is to help you fundamentally rewire how your brain processes a second language.
Yeah.
We're going to explore how to finally stop translating in your head.
Which is the dream, right? But, you know, to solve the lag, we have to understand the mechanism causing it first.
Right. Like, why does the brain default to translation in the first place? It feels like this stubborn reflex we just cannot shake no matter how much vocabulary we memorize.
Well, the thing is, the urge to translate isn't actually a design flaw. It's a biological necessity during the early stages of language acquisition.
Really? So it's supposed to happen?
Oh, absolutely. Linguists refer to this initial phase as contrastive analysis. Think about it. When you first encounter a new language, your brain is basically confronted with acoustic and structural chaos.
Yeah, just random noises, basically.
Right. So to make sense of it, your brain instinctively overlays this new alien structure onto the only architectural blueprint it currently has, which is your native language.
Oh, I see. So it's basically a survival mechanism for comprehension. Like, if I hear a string of sounds, my brain has to map it to something familiar just to establish a baseline of meaning.
That is the absolute core of contractive analysis. Your brain is a comparative machine. Let's say your native language is Japanese, right? Your neural pathways are deeply entrenched in a subject, object, verb sentence structure.
Okay, so they would say something like, I the apple eat.
Exactly. But then you encounter English, which operates on a subject, verb, object structure, I eat the apple.
Right.
When that happens, your brain experiences this kind of structural whiplash. Early on, you literally cannot process the English sentence without manually cross-referencing it against that Japanese blueprint.
You're trying to figure out how the machine works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are building an understanding of how this new piece of machinery works by meticulously comparing its gears and levers to a machine you have already mastered.
I always think of this phase as putting training wheels on a bicycle.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, like when you first get on a bike, your sense of balance is entirely uncalibrated for 2 wheels. You absolutely need those training wheels. They're the contrastive analysis.
They keep you from falling over.
Right. They physically prevent you from falling over and scraping your knees while you slowly figure out the basic mechanics of pedaling and steering. They offer this vital support.
And those training wheels are indispensable at the beginning. You need them. But the inherent problem with training wheels is that they fundamentally alter the physics of riding the bike.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot lean into a turn, you cannot navigate a narrow path, and you certainly cannot achieve any real speed.
So the very mechanism that kept you safe and upright on day one is now the exact thing preventing you from actually racing.
Exactly.
You keep the training wheels on forever. You aren't really riding a bike. You're riding a very slow, very clunky tricycle.
And this is the invisible threshold that traps so many intermediate learners. When you reach a B1 or B2 level, meaning, you've acquired a working vocabulary of roughly 2,000 to 3,000 words, and you understand the foundational grammar.
Right. You're pretty capable at this point.
Yeah, you are. But this comparative mechanism, this contrastive analysis, it morphs from a helpful tool into a massive cognitive liability.
So it goes from saving you to slowing you down.
Precisely. The mental cross-referencing is what generates that 2-second audio lag we talked about. It slows your processing speed to a crawl, leading you directly into a cognitive dead end that linguists and educators refer to as the dictionary trap.
The dictionary trap. Wow. The research we pulled from the language platform Migaku goes really deep into the mechanics of this trap. They talk about the creation of a translation layer in the brain.
Yes, the translation layer.
Let's unpack the architecture of that layer, because I honestly don't think most learners realize they're actively building it every single time they study.
They usually don't. So the dictionary trap is triggered by an over-reliance on bilingual dictionaries and translation apps past the beginner stage.
Like constantly using Google Translate on your phone.
Exactly. When you constantly input an English word into an app to see your native language's equivalent, you are structuring your brain's filing system in a highly inefficient way.
Okay, how so?
Let's use a switchboard metaphor. Imagine your brain's conceptual understanding of the world is this massive, highly efficient fiber optic network. Your native language is deeply integrated into that network.
Right. It's super fast.
Very fast. But when you use a bilingual dictionary, you aren't plugging new English words directly into that high-speed fiber optic system.
So what am I doing? Am I splicing a flimsy little copper wire onto the main line?
Worse, actually. You are routing the English word through the native language word.
Wait, really?
Yeah. If you are a Spanish speaker learning English and you look up the word apple, you are not connecting the English acoustic sound apple to the sensory concept of a crisp, round, red fruit.
Oh, I see where this is going.
You are connecting the sound apple directly to the Spanish word manzana. You are creating a translation layer, a middleman.
Wow. Okay, so in a conversation when someone asks me, do you want an apple? The signal comes in. But it can't go straight to the concept of the fruit.
Nope, it has to take a detour.
The signal has to hit the English switchboard, get physically routed over to the Spanish switchboard, plug into the manzana terminal, pull up the concept of the fruit, register that I am hungry, decide I want it, formulate the Spanish response C, route that back to the English switchboard, translate it to yes, and finally send the signal to my mouth to speak.
Exactly. And that sprawling, wildly inefficient neural routing is the physiological cause of your hesitation.
That's the lag.
That is the conversational lag. You are forcing every single piece of linguistic data through a toll booth. But, speed is only the first casualty of the dictionary trap.
There's a second casualty.
Oh, yeah. And it's arguably more dangerous. It's the illusion of equivalence.
You mean the false confidence of thinking a word means exactly what the dictionary says it means?
Exactly. Language is not math. A bilingual dictionary operates on the premise of a one-to-one equation. It tells you X equals Y.
Right, like apple equals manzana.
Yeah, but words rarely translate with perfect mathematical precision. Words carry all this historical baggage, emotional connotations, cultural contexts, varying degrees of formality.
They have personalities.
Exactly. When you rely on that middleman, you strip away all of that vital nuance. You learn a direct translation, but you completely miss the actual meaning of the word in its natural habitat.
Man, it's like having a terrible interpreter at a high-stakes diplomatic negotiation.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you aren't actually speaking to the other diplomat, right? You're speaking to the interpreter. And if the interpreter decides to summarize a beautifully nuanced, culturally rich statement into this blunt, literal sentence, you lose the entire texture of the conversation.
You lose the soul of what's being said.
So how do we fire the interpreter? I mean, how do we bypass that toll booth?
Well, the solution requires a fundamental shift in how you acquire information. Around that intermediate B1 or B2 level, you must completely abandon the bilingual dictionary.
Cool.
Yes. You have to transition to using a monolingual dictionary, an English to English dictionary.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back on behalf of our listener, because that sounds like an absolute nightmare scenario.
I know, it sounds intimidating.
Intimidating.
Yeah.
I am already struggling to understand a word. You are telling me the solution is to look up that unknown word in a book filled entirely with other words I might not know.
Yeah, that's usually the reaction.
That feels like stepping into a fractal of confusion. You look up one word, the definition has 3 words you don't know. You look those up, and suddenly you are 6 layers deep in the dictionary and you've completely forgotten what you were originally reading.
And you know what? The fear of that endless loop is entirely valid. It is exactly why you should never attempt this transition using a standard, unabridged dictionary designed for native speakers.
Okay, so no Oxford English Dictionary for native speakers.
Right. If you open that to look up a simple word, you will get hit with archaic definitions and highly complex academic prose. It's too much. The tool you need is specifically called a learner's dictionary.
A learner's dictionary. Okay, how does that stop the endless loop of confusion?
Well, both Cambridge and Oxford publish dedicated learner's dictionaries, and their underlying architecture is honestly brilliant.
How so?
The lexicographers who write them operate under a very strict constraint. They are only allowed to use a highly controlled foundational vocabulary to write the definitions.
That's really like a restricted word list.
Exactly. They typically restrict themselves to the most common 2,000 to 3,000 words in the English language.
So they are actively managing the cognitive load.
Precisely.
If I am at a B1 level, I already possess that foundational vocabulary, which means I have the keys to unlock any definition in that specific book.
Precisely the point. You already have the tools. But let's address your fear of the fractal of confusion. What if you do stumble upon an unknown word within a definition and you have to look that second word up?
Yeah, what then? Doesn't that just slow me down?
It might, but that is not a failure of the system. That is the system working at its highest level. We call this cognitive mapping.
Wait, so looking up words inside of definitions is actually building the network?
It is the most robust way to build a network. Think about it. When you look up the word enormous, and a bilingual dictionary simply gives you the native word for big, you learn nothing new.
Right.
But when you look up enormous in a monolingual learner's dictionary, the definition reads something like extremely large in size or amount.
Oh, I see. So instead of routing enormous back to my native language, I am now wiring it directly to extremely large size and amount.
Exactly.
I am forging connections between English words using other English words.
You're building a self-sustaining neural ecosystem. We call these vocabulary networks. You're pulling the English vocabulary out of those restrictive folders of your native language and giving them their own dedicated space in your brain.
It's like you're giving English its own apartment in your head instead of making it sleep on the couch in your native language's apartment.
I love that. Yes, exactly. This is how you begin to think in the language, because the concepts are defining themselves through context, not through translation.
That makes total sense.
And building these monolingual networks isn't just a fun mental exercise. It is an absolute requirement for surviving the most chaotic aspect of the English language.
Oh boy. I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about phrasal verbs.
The dreaded phrasal verbs.
Yeah. Looking at the curriculum from Test English, it becomes blindingly obvious why the translation layer completely collapses when it encounters intermediate English.
Phrasal verbs are the ultimate stress test for vocabulary networks.
They really are. They break the translation app model completely.
Let's look at the mechanics of the verb break. If our listener relies on a bilingual dictionary, they look up break and they get the translation for shattering a physical object, right? Like dropping a glass on the floor.
Right. A very clear physical action. But a phrasal verb takes that core verb and attaches a particle, usually a preposition or an adverb, which completely overrides the original meaning. Right. So we add the preposition down, breakdown, as in my car broke down in the middle of a busy intersection.
Think about what happens if you translate that literally.
If I am trapped in the translation layer, I translate break, which is to shatter, and down, which is a lower physical elevation. My brain attempts to generate an image of a car spontaneously shattering into pieces and falling to the ground.
Exactly. The literal translation generates absolute nonsense. The individual components do not equal the sum of the phrase.
And it gets worse. What if we use break in? like the thieves broke in and stole the television, or break up. They decided to break up after 3 years of dating.
Right.
You cannot translate the directional prepositions in or up to understand a robbery or the emotional end of a romantic relationship.
It just doesn't work. And break is just one example. Consider the spatial metaphors attached to the verb give.
Oh yeah, the core meaning is to transfer possession to someone else.
But what happens when you encounter give up? Like, I decided to give up smoking.
If you parse that through a bilingual middleman, you're trying to understand how transferring possession in an upward trajectory equates to quitting a habit. It's comical.
It really is. Or give in. The parents finally gave in and let the kids stay up late. That means to surrender.
Or give out. The teacher will give out the exam papers. That means to distribute.
Right. If you are mentally isolating give and out and running them through a translation app, the resulting sentence in your native language will be utterly incomprehensible.
Utterly. So how do we fix this specific problem?
This is why the concept of lexical chunks is the bedrock of fluency. You cannot treat give and up as independent variables. Your brain must recognize give up as a single, indivisible unit of meaning.
A lexical chunk.
Yes, a lexical chunk. And you can only acquire lexical chunks by encountering them in context and defining them through a monolingual network.
So you learn that give up equals to stop trying. And both parts of that equation are English.
Exactly. The translation toll booth is entirely bypassed.
Okay, so step one in our mission to stop translating is to fire the middleman. We transition to a learner's dictionary to build self-referential English networks.
That's step one.
But, changing how we look up words is only half the battle, isn't it? We also have to drastically alter where and how often we encounter them.
Absolutely.
Because if you study English for 1 hour a day and then spend the remaining 23 hours swimming in the deep waters of your native language, the English network will eventually wither from neglect.
It will. Use it or lose it. Which means we have to talk about environmental restructuring.
Environmental restructuring. That sounds very intense.
It's actually about manufacturing necessity. The brain is an incredibly efficient organ, right? It will prioritize the neural pathways that are required for daily survival, and it will prune the pathways that are purely academic.
Oh, so if English remains a subject you just study in a textbook, it will remain in the academic processing centers of the brain.
Exactly. You have to force your brain to view English as a functional tool required to navigate reality.
And the source material from 51 Talk offers a fascinatingly simple way to trigger this shift.
That's a great trick.
Yeah, it's the very first highly practical step any listener can take the second this audio finishes. It's called digital ecosystem engineering.
Which sounds complicated, but it's really not.
Not at all. You just go into the settings of your smartphone, your laptop, your tablet, and your smart assistants like Alexa or Siri, and you change the operating system language to English.
Yep. It seems like a minor adjustment, but the psychological impact is immediate and profound.
Why is it so profound?
Think about how many times a day you interact with the screen. We use our devices to manage our lives. When you change the OS to English, you are suddenly executing vital, functional tasks in your target language.
Right. You are setting alarms, checking the weather forecast, navigating traffic maps, managing your calendar.
It forces a state of what the researchers call immediate retrieval.
Immediate retrieval.
Yeah. When your phone rings and the screen says slide to answer, instead the phrase in your native language, your brain registers a micro moment of required comprehension to achieve a goal.
You aren't studying in that moment. You are doing.
Exactly. It binds the language to physical action and daily utility.
It's almost like a way of digitally simulating immersion. You are creating this microenvironment where English is the default state of operation.
It is. But we can take this concept beyond the digital screen and apply it to our physical living space too, through a technique called realia mapping.
Realia mapping. This is the classic language learning advice of putting sticky notes on objects around your house, right?
It is, but the standard execution of this technique is deeply flawed.
Right, like the traditional advice is to write refrigerator on a yellow Post-it and slap it on the fridge door.
Which is terrible advice.
Yeah, based on everything we just discussed about phrasal verbs and lexical chunks, that seems completely counterproductive. We're just isolating a single noun again.
Exactly. An isolated noun provides zero syntactic context. It doesn't teach you how the word behaves in a sentence.
So how do we fix it?
To execute realia mapping effectively, you must upgrade from isolated words to functional lexical chunks. You don't label the object. You label the action associated with the object.
Oh, okay. So what does that actually look like in a kitchen?
Instead of a Post-it that says refrigerator, You write out a complete, highly frequent sentence, like, I need to grab some food from the refrigerator.
Oh, I see.
Or on your bathroom mirror, you don't write mirror. You write, I am brushing my teeth in front of the mirror.
And on the front door, you write, I am locking the door before I leave.
Precisely.
That is brilliant. You are physically mapping syntax onto your daily routine. Every time you walk through your house to perform a chore, you are visually triggered to process a complete grammatical structure.
The house itself becomes a three-dimensional vocabulary network.
I love that. But environment isn't just about chores and smartphones. A huge portion of our environment is entertainment. And the common advice is always, just watch movies in English.
Which is incredibly misleading advice if the goal is to stop translating.
Wait, really? Why? I mean, I'm listening to native English for 2 hours straight. How is that bad?
It isn't bad for general exposure, per se, but passive listening rarely disrupts the translation layer.
Why not?
Because if you are slumped on the couch watching a film, especially if you have subtitles turned on in your native language, your brain is taking the path of least resistance.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's too easy.
The language is washing over you, but you aren't being forced to generate meaning or predict outcomes. To truly rewire the brain, you have to shift from passive consumption to active engagement.
Okay, so 51 Talk outlines an exercise specifically designed for this. It's called the pause and predict drill. And honestly, it sounds exhausting, but incredibly effective.
It is essentially a cognitive stress test.
How does it work?
You choose an English television show or film, preferably something conversational, like a sitcom or a drama. You hit play, and the moment a character delivers a line of dialogue or asks a question, you instantly hit the pause button.
Okay, so the scene is frozen. What is my brain supposed to be doing right then?
You must immediately analyze the context of the scene, the emotional state of the characters, and the conversational prompt. And then you say out loud what you predict the other character will say in response.
Wow.
You generate an immediate, spontaneous reply. Then you unpause the video and compare your generated response to the actual script.
That sounds like a high-pressure game. You are forcing the brain into conversational generation, but safely inside your living room.
Exactly. It's a safe sandbox.
You have to process the input, formulate a thought, and speak it aloud in a fraction of a second, which gives the translation layer zero time to activate.
It creates an artificial urgency. But here is where we run into a major psychological barrier with this kind of practice.
What's the barrier?
When you engage in high-intensity active watching, or when you read native-level content, you are inevitably going to hit a wall of unknown vocabulary.
Oh, sure. Constantly.
And the instinctual reaction is to panic, pause the video, grab the dictionary, and define every single word you don't recognize.
Well, yeah. Because if I don't know the word, I'm losing the plot, right? I have to look it up to learn it.
But that instinct is exactly what Ollie Richards warns against in his story learning methodology. He introduces a concept that is vital for advanced fluency. It's called living with ambiguity.
Living with ambiguity. I mean, that is a massive psychological ask. Human beings hate ambiguity.
We despise it.
Our brains are literally wired to resolve uncertainty because uncertainty historically meant danger.
Precisely. The brain demands closure. When you hear a sentence and there is a gaping hole where a vocabulary word should be, your brain registers cognitive dissonance.
Like an itch you can't scratch.
It sends a minor stress signal, literally a tiny spike of cortisol demanding that you resolve the missing information. Reaching for the dictionary is how you soothe that neurological stress.
So you are telling the listener that to become fluent, they have to learn to sit comfortably in a state of biochemical stress.
Yes. You have to build a tolerance for it, because if you pause a podcast every 15 seconds to look up a word, you are sacrificing the macro comprehension for microdata.
You miss the forest for the trees.
Exactly. You lose the rhythm of the language, the intonation, the overarching narrative, and the emotional context. True fluency requires you to accept the ambiguity of the unknown word and trust that your brain's pattern recognition software will eventually solve the puzzle through context.
It makes me think of listening to a new song on the radio.
Oh, how so?
Well, the first time you hear it, the bass is loud, the melody is fast, and you might only catch the lyrics of the chorus, right?
Right.
But you don't pause the song after the first verse to look up the lyrics online.
Yeah.
You let the music play. You feel the rhythm. By the third time you hear the song, you suddenly understand the second verse because the context of the rhythm has taught you how the words fit together. If you pause the music to analyze every syllable, you just destroy the song.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Language is acoustic, It has a rhythm, a melody, and a cadence, which linguists call prosody. If you constantly interrupt the prosody to analyze the data, you never learn the music of the language.
Which provides the perfect bridge to our next major hurdle. We've restructured our environment. We are mapping our homes, pausing our shows, and living with ambiguity to improve our reading and listening.
We're soaking up the music.
We're soaking up the music of English. But understanding the music doesn't mean you know how to play the instrument.
Very true.
When it's time for the listener to open their mouth and speak, that terrifying lag returns. So how do we build the physical and neurological muscle memory to speak English without pausing to translate?
We have to look at the mechanic of speaking and a technique called shadowing. Yes. Shadowing is arguably the most powerful speaking exercise in existence, yet it remains largely unknown outside of elite linguistic circles.
Who uses it?
It is the primary training methodology used by simultaneous interpreters, the people who sit in the soundproof booths at the United Nations.
Oh.
Yeah, they're listening to a speech in one language and translating it aloud into another language with only a microsecond of delay.
Well, if it works for UN interpreters, it will definitely work for us. So how does this differ from the old repeat after me exercises we all did in high school language class?
Repeat after me is sequential. You listen to a complete sentence, the audio stops, and then you parrot the sentence back from memory.
Okay, so that's memory.
Right. That is an exercise in short-term memory recall. Shadowing is simultaneous. You listen to a native speaker and you speak over them, shadowing their voice with only a fraction of a second delay.
So if the audio says, "the quick brown fox," I am saying "the" while they are saying "quick." I am just a continuous echo.
Exactly. You are matching their pace, their intonation, their pauses, and their emotion in real time.
But how does that bypass the translation layer? It seems like it would just overwhelm the brain completely.
It works specifically because it overwhelms the brain.
Really?
Yes. Shadowing hijacks a mechanism in your working memory known as the phonological loop. This is a concept developed by cognitive psychologist Alan Baddeley.
Okay, tell me about this loop.
The loop consists of two parts. The phonological store, which acts as an inner ear retaining sound for a few seconds, and the articulatory rehearsal process, which acts as an inner voice repeating the sound.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's the loop we use when someone tells us a phone number and we repeat it under our breaths over and over as we walk to write it down.
Yes, exactly. That's the loop. When you shadow, you push that loop to its absolute maximum capacity.
Because you're doing so much at once.
Right. You are simultaneously receiving complex acoustic data, storing it, and physically articulating it. There is literally zero bandwidth left in your working memory to engage the translation layer.
It's fully occupied.
Your brain abandons the attempt to translate because it's too busy managing the physical mechanics of speech.
So we are forcing a cognitive bypass through sheer speed. But it isn't just about speed, is it? It's physically changing the brain. The data from the Tohoku University study is just mind-blowing in this regard.
The Tohoku University neuroimaging study is a landmark piece of research. They took language learners, put them in fMRI machines, and tracked their brain activity while they engaged in regular shadowing training.
And what did they find?
They discovered that shadowing causes measurable physical changes, like increased neural density and activation in the left cerebellum.
And what did the left cerebellum do?
It is deeply involved in timing, motor control, and the fluid execution of complex sequences, including the intricate muscle movements required for speech.
Wow.
By shadowing, these learners were physically reorganizing their brain's hardware. They were training their jaw, tongue, and vocal cords to produce English sounds automatically without conscious thought.
They were building athletic muscle memory for language.
Precisely. It's an athletic endeavor.
Okay, I am entirely sold on the neuroscience. But how do I actually train this? If I just pull up a random 2-hour podcast and try to talk over the host, I feel like I'm going to run out of breath and give up in 3 minutes.
Oh, you absolutely would. There has to be a structured approach.
Good. The curriculum for Practice Me outlines a 5-step method. Let's walk through it.
The structure is vital to prevent burnout. Step 1 is selecting the right material. You need a short audio clip no longer than 1 to 2 minutes.
Just a minute or two.
Yes. And the golden rule here is comprehensible input. You must already understand roughly 80% of the vocabulary in the clip.
Because if I try to shadow an astrophysics lecture filled with jargon, I don't know, I'm not learning language, I'm just making mindless noises.
Exactly. I'm focusing so hard on the strange sounds that the meaning is lost. TED Talks, brief news segments, or graded reader audiobooks are perfect for this.
All right, so I have a 2-minute clip about a topic I mostly understand. My immediate instinct is to hit play and start talking over it.
Which would be a mistake. Oh.
Okay. Step 2 is to listen first, entirely silently. You play the clip once or twice and just focus on the meaning. You are listening for the rhythm. Where does the speaker take a breath? Which words do they emphasize?
Right. Comprehension and acoustic familiarization must precede imitation.
You have to know the map before you try to drive the car.
Okay. I've listened to it. I understand the flow. Step 3.
Step 3 introduces the training wheels. You shadow with a transcript.
Oh, okay. Reading along.
You hit play, you read the text out loud, and you speak along with the audio. Your eyes are providing a scaffold for your ears and your mouth.
I really love this step because it trains the brain to ignore how English is spelled.
Oh, English spelling is a disaster.
It is. If I read the word comfortable, my brain wants to pronounce every syllable, comfortable. But when I shadow the native speaker while reading it, I realize they actually say comf-r.
You are reprogramming your phonetic expectations.
So how long do I stay on step 3? You stay on step 3 until your mouth feels physically capable of matching the speaker's speed. Once the scaffolding feels secure, you move to step 4, which is the actual cognitive workout.
Let me guess. Shadowing without the transcript.
Shadowing without the transcript, you remove the visual aid, you rely entirely on your ears and your articulatory loop.
And this is where it's going to get messy, I bet. I'm going to stumble over my tongue.
Yeah.
What do I do when I trip up? Do I pause the audio and rewind?
No, never stop the audio.
Never.
Never. If you stumble, you just drop the word, take a breath, catch the rhythm, and jump back into the stream on the next sentence.
Okay, keep going.
If you pause and rewind, you break the phonological loop. The goal is flow and continuous motor activation, not 100% perfection on the first try.
Keep moving forward, accept the ambiguity of the missed word. And finally, the step that everyone is going to hate. Step 5.
Step 5. Record yourself and compare.
It's so uncomfortable. Nobody enjoys the sound of their own recorded voice.
No one, but it is the fastest mechanism for self-correction. You record your shadowing session on your phone, and then you listen to it side by side with the original native audio.
Why is this so crucial? Can't I just hear when I'm doing it right in the moment?
You actually can't. When you are speaking, you are hearing your voice resonate through the bones of your own skull, which distorts the pitch and the tone. You literally do not hear what the outside world hears.
That's wild.
Recording yourself bridges the gap between your perceived pronunciation and your actual pronunciation. You will instantly realize, oh, I thought I was raising my pitch at the end of that question, but I actually sound completely flat.
It's harsh, but it provides immediate actionable feedback. But we have to set some guardrails here, right? This sounds like an intense neurological workout. Can I just shadow for an hour a day to get fluent faster?
Absolutely not. The first guardrail is time restriction. You must cap your shadowing sessions at 10 to 15 minutes maximum per day.
Only 15 minutes.
Yes. Because you are pushing your working memory to its absolute limit, cognitive fatigue sets in very rapidly. If you push past 15 minutes, your brain stops processing the language deeply and resorts to just mindless mimicking.
Diminishing returns.
Exactly. 10 minutes of highly focused, intense shadowing every single day will yield exponentially better results than a single exhausting 2-hour session on a Sunday.
Consistency over intensity.
Yeah.
Treat it like high-intensity interval training for your vocal cords.
Yes.
What is the second guardrail?
Accent consistency. This is a subtle nuance, but it has massive implications for your physical development. You must not mix accents during your shadowing training.
So if I shadow an American speaker on Monday, do not shadow a British speaker on Tuesday.
Correct.
I find this fascinating because from a listening comprehension standpoint, exposure to multiple accents is generally considered a good thing, right?
Huh.
We want to understand English no matter who is speaking it.
For listening, broad exposure is excellent. But shadowing is not a listening exercise. It is a physical production exercise. You are building muscle memory in your jaw, your lips, and your tongue.
Right.
The physical mechanics required to produce an American accent are vastly different from a British accent.
Could you give an example?
Sure. American English is typically rhotic, meaning the R sound is pronounced heavily at the ends of words, requiring the tongue to pull back and tense up. Many British accents are non-rhotic, dropping the final R and requiring a more relaxed, open vowel shape.
So if I mix them daily, I am sending contradictory physical instructions to my vocal apparatus.
Exactly. I am telling my tongue to tense up on Monday and relax on Tuesday. You confuse the muscle memory, and as a result, your pronunciation remains muddled.
So pick a lane.
Pick one accent path, whichever is most relevant to your career or personal goals, and stick to it relentlessly during your shadowing sessions to build clean, precise motor patterns.
So shadowing builds the physical pathways. It forces the translation layer to shut down. But there's a massive limitation to shadowing. You are only echoing someone else's thoughts.
True.
The ultimate goal of fluency isn't to be a perfect parrot.
Right.
It is to generate your own spontaneous thoughts. How do we cross that bridge? How do we take this external acoustic data we've been practicing and internalize it?
How do we start generating ideas purely in English?
Yes.
Well, that transition requires us to consciously build an English inner monologue. We have to map the language onto our internal reality. And the most effective bridge between physical speaking and internal thinking is a technique known as the vlogger method.
The vlogger method. We touched on this briefly when we discussed realia mapping and the daily routine, but the vlogger method takes it to a much deeper level of engagement.
It does. The premise is simple, if a bit eccentric. You pretend you are a prominent YouTuber or vlogger, and you have a camera following you around as you perform mundane daily tasks.
Okay, I love this.
You narrate your actions out loud, in real time, describing exactly what you are doing, how you are doing it, and why.
So, welcome back to my channel. I am currently standing in the kitchen chopping garlic for a pasta sauce. I need to dice it finely so it releases the flavor in the olive oil.
Exactly. The brilliance of the vlogger method lies in its ability to expose your practical vocabulary gaps immediately.
Because you suddenly realize what you don't know.
Exactly. When you study from a textbook, you are learning the vocabulary the author deemed important, usually abstract concepts or business terminology.
Right.
But when you force yourself to narrate your actual physical reality, you realize what you truly don't know. You might be able to discuss quarterly financial projections in English, but as you are cooking, you suddenly realize you have no idea how to say spatula or colander or simmer.
Wow, yeah. It forces you to map the English language onto your immediate lived environment. It ensures you have the vocabulary to exist as a human being, not just a student.
Precisely.
But obviously, we cannot spend our entire lives walking through the grocery store, muttering to ourselves about the price of tomatoes. People will think we're crazy.
Probably.
So we have to take that vocalized narrative and turn it inward. We have to cultivate a silent inner monologue.
Cultivating an inner monologue is a delicate process. You are essentially attempting to replicate the cognitive development stages of childhood within a new language framework.
Okay, so it takes time.
It takes time. You cannot just flip a switch and expect your brain to instantly ponder complex philosophical dilemmas in English. You must progress through specific cognitive levels.
And the curriculum from the English podcast, 400 daily sentences, structures this progression beautifully. Let's break down the levels. What does level 1 of the inner monologue look like?
Level 1 is the beginner stage. It focuses entirely on simple, immediate, present tense observation. It is the language of a child first engaging with the world. You wake up in the morning, and instead of allowing your native language to boot up, you actively force the thought in English. I am awake. The room is cold. The sky is blue. Where did I leave my shoes?
It feels incredibly basic, almost embarrassingly simple.
The simplicity is the point.
Yeah.
You are keeping the cognitive load as low as possible. You are training the brain to form a direct, instantaneous link between a physical sensation like feeling cold and the English words, I am cold.
Bypassing the translation layer.
Bypassing it entirely because the thought is too simple to require a dictionary. And because it is simple, you can sustain this practice throughout the entire day without exhausting yourself.
Okay, so once the sky is blue and I am drinking coffee, become automatic default thoughts. We move to level 2, the intermediate inner monologue. What changes here?
Level 2 shifts from passive observation to active executive function. This is where your inner voice begins to manage your life, your schedule, and your problem solving. It moves from the present moment into the immediate future.
So, sitting at my desk, I start narrating my workload. I need to draft this email before the 2 p.m. meeting. If I finish early, I will grab a coffee. I wonder if John has the quarterly report ready.
Yes. You are engaging in conditional thinking and planning. This is the practical day-to-day thinking that dominates our adult lives.
Makes sense.
When you can silently plan your afternoon schedule entirely in English, you have achieved a massive milestone in fluency because you have made the language functional.
And then we reach the final boss of cognitive development, level 3, advanced inner monologue.
the final boss, indeed. Level 3 moves away from the physical world and schedule management entirely. It enters the realm of abstract reasoning, deep reflection, and emotional processing.
The heavy stuff.
This is where true unfiltered fluency lives. It is when your internal voice begins to wrestle with complex psychology purely in English.
Like what kind of thoughts?
Things like, why did that comment make me so defensive? Or, I am feeling overwhelmed by this transition, but I know it's a necessary step for my growth.
That is profound.
Yeah.
You are using the second language to perform psychological maintenance on yourself. You are processing your own emotional state without ever touching your native tongue.
And this concept of processing emotional weight connects directly to a powerful technique detailed by Odin in his second language strategies writing.
Oh yeah, the journaling.
He advocates for taking this level 3 internal monologue and making it permanent through the act of journaling, but he stresses a very specific constraint.
Which is?
You should journal about significant, highly emotional life events directly in English.
Why restrict it to significant events, though? Why not just journal about what I had for lunch and how my commute was?
Because memory and language are inextricably linked to emotion. When you journal about a mundane commute, the brain treats it as low-priority data.
It just forgets it.
Right. But when you sit down to describe a profound memory, a joyful birthday, a painful breakup, a moment of deep realization, you are dealing with high emotional stakes.
So the brain pays attention.
Exactly. When you force yourself to articulate those deep emotions directly in English, you bypass the analytical academic centers of the brain entirely. You are hardwiring the English vocabulary directly into your brain's emotional core.
It transforms the language from a tool of communication into a vessel for your actual identity.
Beautifully said.
And because it's a journal, not a live conversation, you have the luxury of time. If you don't know the exact English word to capture a complex feeling like melancholy, you can consult your monolingual dictionary, find the precise nuance, and write it down.
You are permanently expanding the depth of your emotional vocabulary in the target language.
Odin also introduces a proactive strategy he calls mental chess. How does that play into the inner monologue?
Mental chess is the strategic application of level 2 planning. It is the deliberate practice of pre-planning complex future conversations in your head to ensure fluidity when the moment arrives. It is conversational risk management.
Conversational risk management. Walk me through a scenario.
Okay, imagine you have a performance review with your boss tomorrow. You know the topics that will be discussed. You engage in mental chess by playing out the dialogue tree in your mind, entirely in English.
Anticipating what they'll say.
Right. If she brings up the delayed project, I will pivot and highlight the increased revenue from the new client. If she asks about my goals, I will outline my 3-point plan. You are anticipating the opponent's moves and pre-formulating your responses.
You are essentially writing this script for the conversation before it happens in a zero-stress environment.
Yeah.
So when you walk into the actual meeting, you aren't scrambling to translate your defense on the fly. You are simply accessing the neural pathways you paved the night before. You're prepared.
Exactly. It reduces the cognitive load of the live interaction by half, which brings us to the final and perhaps most difficult frontier.
Right. Because we have re-engineered our environment, we have trained the physical mechanics of speaking through shadowing, and we have cultivated a deep internal monologue and practiced mental chess.
We've done a lot of prep work.
But real life is rarely predictable. Mental chess only works if you know what game you are playing.
Very true.
What happens when the conversation takes a wild, unexpected turn? You're at a dinner party, making small talk, and someone suddenly asks for your detailed opinion on a complex topic you haven't prepared for.
The dreaded curveball.
Yes. The panic sets in, the amygdala flares up, and in that moment of high stress, the brain instantly abandons the English network and retreats to the safety of the native language to translate a lifeline. So how do we stop that panic translation? How do we structure truly spontaneous thought under pressure?
To solve the panic response, we turn to the Fluency framework developed by teacher Tiffany. Her central thesis is that we revert to translation in moments of stress, not because we lack vocabulary, but because we lack organized, topic-specific conceptual structures.
We lack organization.
Yes. When put on the spot, the brain doesn't know where to start looking for words. The solution is a 3-stage cognitive system, beginning with the construction of topic clusters.
Topic clusters. So this is a departure from the traditional way we learn vocabulary, which is usually alphabetical lists or random flashcards.
Right. Memorizing a list of arbitrary words from A to Z is useless for spontaneous speech. In reality, human conversations orbit around specific themes.
It's like gravity wells.
Exactly. You don't jump wildly from discussing culinary techniques to discussing the nuances of aerospace engineering in the same breath. Topics cluster together. Therefore, you must organize your vocabulary networks around these thematic gravity wells.
Let's use Tefani's examples to make this concrete.
Okay, take the broad topic of fitness. Instead of just learning the generic word exercise, you build a cluster of related concepts that naturally appear together in a gym environment. Warm up, rep, short for repetition, and cool down.
So I have a mental folder labeled fitness, and inside it, these 3 specific actions are bound together. The warm-up prepares the body, the rep is the work, the cool-down aids recovery. They form a logical sequence.
Exactly. Or look at the topic of retail shopping. You don't just learn buy, you build a cluster. Browse, which is the act of looking without intent to purchase immediately. Checkout, the location and process of paying. And return, the process of bringing a defective item back.
Okay, I see how that works.
Or travel, layover, the waiting period between connecting flights. Board, the physical act of entering the aircraft. And jet lag, the physiological disruption of crossing time zones.
I see the power in this. When a conversation abruptly shifts to the topic of an upcoming vacation, my brain doesn't have to scan a chaotic database of 10,000 random English words.
It just goes to the right folder.
The cognitive load plummets because my brain simply opens the travel cluster folder. The words layover, board, and jet lag are already there, sitting on the top desk, pre-associated and ready to deploy.
You have isolated the required data, but possessing the vocabulary cluster is only stage 1. Having bricks doesn't mean you know how to build a wall.
Right, you need a blueprint.
When the panic hits, you need a blueprint to assemble those words into a coherent narrative instantly. This is stage 2, the 5 W's narrative framework.
The 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. It's the foundational framework of journalism. We all learned this in primary school for writing essays. But how does applying it to spoken conversation stop the translation reflex?
Well, when you are put on the spot, the panic arises from the pressure of having to generate both the structure of a story and the vocabulary of a story simultaneously.
It's just too much processing power required at once.
Exactly. The 5 W's act as an automated mental scaffolding. It gives you a predetermined path to walk down. You don't have to think about how to structure your answer. You just answer the 5 questions in sequence.
That is so simple but so effective. Let's run a simulation of this to see how it works in real time. Let's use the travel cluster we just built.
Okay, let's build the scaffold step by step. Let's start with who. Who are we talking about?
My cousin Mark.
Okay, what does he do?
He plans extensive backpacking trips.
When does he do this?
Every year during the summer.
Where does he go?
Across remote parts of Europe and Asia.
And finally, why? What is his motivation?
To experience different cultures and step outside his comfort zone.
Now look at what you just did. By simply answering 5 basic questions, you generated the raw materials for a highly complex paragraph-length response.
Oh, wow. I did.
Now, you string those answers together, and crucially, you weave in your topic cluster words to elevate the fluency.
Okay, let me try to put it all together. My cousin Mark is a highly experienced traveler who plans extensive backpacking trips across remote parts of Europe and Asia every summer, primarily because he wants to experience different cultures.
Yeah.
Because he travels so much, he knows exactly how to handle a 12-hour layover, he knows the most efficient way to board a crowded flight, and he has a strict routine to minimize his jet lag.
See, that is flawless, spontaneous English. You just delivered a rich, grammatically complex, logically flowing narrative without a single millisecond of translation.
I really didn't even think about translating.
Because the scaffolding of the 5 W's absorbed the structural cognitive load, allowing your brain to focus entirely on retrieving the English vocabulary.
It completely neutralizes the panic. I always know exactly what I'm going to say next because I just moved to the next WR. That is a massive breakthrough for conversational confidence.
It really is.
And that leads us to the pinnacle of spontaneous thought. Stage 3 of Tefani's system. Opinions and reasons.
Yes, the 5 W's are excellent for relating narratives and facts. But the highest level of intellectual processing in any language is the ability to formulate a subjective opinion and spontaneously defend it with logical reasoning.
Why is this specific structure, opinion plus reasons, the ultimate test of escaping the translation layer?
Because it demands rapid critical thinking. Let's say you train your brain to state an opinion. For example, I firmly believe that remote work is more productive than office work.
Okay.
And then you force yourself to immediately follow that statement with three distinct logical pillars of support. First, it eliminates the fatigue of a daily commute. Second, it allows for customized, distraction-free environments. Third, it provides schedule flexibility that aligns with natural energy cycles.
You are engaging in high-level persuasion.
Exactly. You aren't just reciting a story, you are actively structuring a debate. You are manipulating abstract concepts to prove a point.
And you cannot successfully construct a multi-layered logical argument if you are simultaneously trying to run every concept through a bilingual dictionary.
No, the processing delay would destroy the rhetorical impact of your argument entirely. When you can state an opinion and defend it with three pillars of logic purely in English, you have officially starved the translation layer to death. You are thinking critically in the target language.
That feels like the finish line. That is the holy grail of fluency we all strive for. But, as we wrap up this massive exploration of linguistic mechanics, I think it's vital to acknowledge one final, deeply human element.
I agree.
We have spent this entire deep dive dissecting the brain. We've talked about dictionaries, environments, phonological loops, muscle memory, inner monologues, and cognitive scaffolding. But language is not just a sterile exchange of data between two biological computers.
No, it's not. It is the lifeblood of human culture.
Exactly. And there is a story from teacher Tiffany's own experience that perfectly illustrates a level of communication that no textbook, no grammar rule, and absolutely no translation app could ever decode.
Oh, the airplane lotion story. It is a brilliant masterclass in the invisible architecture of shared cultural context.
Let's set the scene for the listener. Tiffany is on a commercial flight. She is seated next to a stranger, a very large man, whom she describes as having the physical presence of a professional football player.
Okay, picture that.
During the flight, she reaches into her bag and pulls out a small bottle of hand lotion to moisturize her hands. Now, the large man sitting next to her does not turn to her and initiate a polite, grammatically complete request.
No.
He does not say, "Excuse me, miss, the cabin air has made my skin quite dry. Would you mind sharing a small amount of your moisturizer with me?"
Instead, he simply holds out his large hand, makes eye contact with her, and utters a single syllable. Sis.
Just sis. And Tiffany's response is equally devoid of literal grammatical sense. She looks at him, dispenses a dab of lotion into his massive hand, and says, "I got you, boo."
Sis, and I got you, boo. It's incredible. Let's analyze that through the lens of a literal translation app.
Well, this will be good.
If an intermediate learner plugs that exchange into their phone, the app will objectively report that a large male stranger addressed a woman as his sibling, and she responded by affirming his request while referring to him as a ghost boo.
It yields absolute comical nonsense. It fails every test of literal meaning.
But sociolinguistically, the interaction is a masterpiece of efficiency and warmth. It relies entirely on shared context, subtle body language, and a deep cultural understanding within the African-American community.
Right. The word cis in this specific context has nothing to do with biological relation. It is a term of immediate solidarity, respect, and communal endearment.
Exactly. And holding out the hand without a formal request is an unspoken acknowledgement of a shared cultural aversion to having dry or ashy skin, especially in a dry airplane cabin.
And her response, "I got you, boo," is an affectionate, colloquial confirmation that she understands the unspoken need and is happy to provide for a member of the broader community.
It's a profound moment of human connection conveyed in 4 words.
And the crucial takeaway for our listener is this. If you remain trapped in the dictionary trap, if you insist on translating every word literally in your head, searching for the exact mathematical equivalent in your native language, you will forever remain on the outside of these moments.
You would sit on that airplane, utterly baffled by the exchange.
True fluency extends far beyond flawless grammar and expansive vocabulary. True fluency is the ability to participate in the shared human context.
It is understanding the humor, the implied history, the tone, and the unspoken rules of engagement. You can only access that profound level of human connection when you bravely step away from the translation layer and engage directly, vulnerably, with the language and the people who breathe life into it.
That is beautifully said. Let's take a moment to summarize this incredible transformative journey we have mapped out today. We began by identifying the root cause of the lag, the contrastive analysis phase that overstays its welcome.
The training wheels.
Right. To fix it, we fired the middleman. We abandoned bilingual dictionaries in favor of learners' dictionaries, forging robust, self-referential vocabulary networks that bypass our native language entirely.
We then fundamentally re-engineered our daily environment. We weaponized our digital ecosystems to force immediate retrieval, and we mapped our physical homes with functional lexical chunks, ensuring that our daily routines trigger active grammatical processing.
We tackled the daunting physical barrier of speaking by embracing the rigorous mechanics of shadowing. We pushed our phonological loops to the limit, physically rewiring the motor pathways in our left cerebellum to mimic native prosody and rhythm, proving that language is as much an athletic endeavor as a mental one.
We consciously bridged the gap between physical production and internal thought by adopting the vlogger method to expose our practical vocabulary gaps. We then meticulously cultivated an inner monologue, progressing from simple childlike observations to complex executive planning, and finally to deep emotional processing, cementing that emotional weight through targeted journaling.
And finally, we dismantled the panic response of spontaneous conversation. We organized our minds into thematic topic clusters, we utilized the cognitive scaffolding of the 5Ws narrative framework, and we trained ourselves to rapidly defend our opinions with logical pillars, allowing us to eventually step out of the textbook and participate in the rich, messy, beautiful nuances of true cultural communication.
It is a comprehensive, holistic system for cognitive restructuring. And I want to offer a word of encouragement to the listener. You must be patient with yourself. You are fundamentally dismantling and rebuilding the neurological pathways through which you process reality.
It's going to be exhausting.
It is exhausting work. It requires relentless consistency and a profound willingness to embrace the discomfort of ambiguity.
But the reward is absolute freedom. Before we wrap up this deep dive and let you get to work on your digital ecosystem, I want to leave you with one final, slightly philosophical question to ponder.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We have spent this entire hour discussing the rigorous mechanics of changing how your brain processes language. But it inevitably leads to a much deeper question about identity.
It's the ultimate linguistic threshold. When you finally succeed, when you strip away that translation layer entirely and you start experiencing your daily chores, your complex problem solving, and your deepest, most private emotional reflections purely in English, do you become a slightly different person?
That is heavy.
There is a theory in linguistics that the language we speak fundamentally shapes the way we categorize and perceive the world. If that is true, what new facets of your personality, what undiscovered perspectives, and what entirely new ways of experiencing joy, frustration, and connection are just waiting to be unlocked once you truly start thinking directly in this new language?
Are you just learning a language, or are you building a second self? That is a fascinating, provocative thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into rewiring your brain for true fluency. Keep building those networks, keep shadowing through the discomfort, and we will catch you on the next one.